So I'm going to tell not about any research, not about too much, we already heard about the diagnostics. I'm going to bring examples of, I represent the Israel Alzheimer Association, EMDA, and talk about the practical projects that we do for working with people with dementia, having activities and activity kits adapted for the people with dementia, and supporting the family caregivers and the professional caregivers that are working with the people with dementia with minority ethnic groups. Israel is a very multicultural, diverse country. And this picture here, the painting of a famous Israeli painter from 1949, the Seder, it has, you see all the people that were living in the country at the time. You have religious Orthodox, you have people that came from Yemen, you have Arabs, Muslims, you have someone from a kibbutz, and you even have Jesus that's sitting at the table. This is called the First Seder. Jesus was at the Last Supper, the last Seder, and this was in 1949 that he painted the picture, and there were 800,000 people in the country at the time. And now we have almost 9 million people in Israel. Still we have very diverse minorities, and 20% of the minorities are Druze, Muslims, and Bedouins that are living in the country. And we'll also be talking about the ultra-Orthodox Jews, Ethiopian Jews, and foreign workers that also are part of the minorities that we're working with. First, I'm an occupational therapist, so I want to first talk about activities, because also after we do the diagnosis, we heard today that the most important thing, people that are living with dementia, even if they're doing exercise, finding some kind of meaningful activity, to live with dementia, you have to be involved in life. So that's what we have to do with people most of the time. So I'm going to bring an example of a student that Daphna is my partner, my colleague in a lot of these projects that we're representing. She was a student of ours, Orit, that she did a project with Ethiopian elderly women with cognitive decline. And she decided to adapt a familiar activity that they do in Ethiopia, women do in Ethiopia all the time from the time there was young children, young girls, is weaving. So she made an adapted weaving that they could do, and she wanted to encourage them to tell their stories, tell their reminiscence through doing the weaving. So it's something natural that they were doing, and she also involved the families in these activities. With EMDA, our Alzheimer Association, we've designed activity kits for people living in dementia. The first kit we'll talk about is the Activity for Health kit that has really a rainbow spectrum of therapeutic activities, sensory stimulation, cognitive stimulation, reminiscence, cooking, music, everything that's we know is good for working with people with dementia. We developed it for people with a mild and moderate stages of dementia. And really all of these things are included, the cognitive stimulation therapy that we all know that is that we're all supposed to be doing when we work with people with dementia. And we've been doing a project with the kit for 20 years now that we train volunteers in many communities in the country to go into the homes, make a visit one day a week, involving the person with dementia with the activities, whatever they enjoy doing and they can do, coaching the caregivers to continue to do the activities, some families and some of the foreign caregivers I'll talk about later, and giving them a lot of advice on how to do dementia care and manage with the different problems. And we found that there's lots of improvement in the quality of life for the person and the family itself. We translated the kit into 4 languages, in Arabic, Hebrew, English, and Russian, and adapted it to these different cultures. And some of the things that can be adapted and people can connect to is looking at pictures of famous people. Like if you see here with the Arab population, when they see the singers, Kulthum, or the king of Jordan, they can get really excited and they identify it. And also, you talked about the things of translation, and people from minorities, a lot of times they have lower education. So most of these things that we've adapted, you don't need an education. It's part of their culture. Recipes. We had a volunteer working with a Yemenite woman, and she used to make pita bread every week. So the volunteer made pita bread with her, and after that, each week a different daughter came to make pita bread with her mother. Sayings and proverbs connects people to their wisdom. Music. Once the volunteers go in and make a playlist, individual for the people with dementia, people that from Morocco that used to listen to music in French, or in the Arab countries to listen to music in Arabic, or all the different music, or an Orthodox religious person from Europe that listened to music in Yiddish. Reminiscence, a samovar. Even my mother has my great-grandmother's samovar in her house, so that's something that's connected to my family. Drinking Turkish coffee for Arabic speaking families, and doing arts and crafts that are, again, connected to the cultures. So the project that we do, they adapted in Russia, in the post-Soviet Union communities for Jewish minorities that are still living there. Most of their families have left to the West, so the people, the elderly with dementia in post-Soviet Union Russia are living by themselves without families. So professionals that work with the elderly who are trained to use the kit, and they go and make weekly visits, and the people really enjoy the visits. They're involved in the activities, their mood is improved, and it really kind of gets rid of their loneliness. We try to train volunteers to go into the Arab communities. It's very difficult to go into the people's homes, so most of the volunteers have been doing the activities in Arab daycare centers and supportive communities in the Arab community. In the Orthodox Jewish communities, which volunteering is very part of the religious values, we only have female volunteers, and they can't go into the work with men that have dementia. So some of the volunteers suggested, well, we'll train the daughters and granddaughters to work with their fathers and grandfathers. And also, these are the pictures that we had to take out of the kit, of course, because it's not religiously appropriate. We also developed an activity kit we call the Way of the Senses, for people with advanced stages of dementia that has really, it's very universal goes with a different equipment and things, to stimulate all of the senses. But when we're working with the senses, it's important to use the herbs, the spices that are part of the person's tradition. They wake up when they smell the spices, the mint. Or here's a picture of a group of men in a daycare center in one of the Arab communities in Israel, aromatherapy. And it's a group of men that they're Muslim, Druze, and Bedouin in the same group. But it's only men separately and women separately. And Michal, who's going to give the presentation later, was one of the main developers of the activity kit on the Couch with Picasso. It's an activity kit of, instead of going to the museum, bringing the museum into the home or into the day center, and we're using art pictures. And this is an example of two pictures. It's like also, we want to encourage people to speak, to share their emotions, to arouse their memories. The picture of, we all know, is the girl with the pearl earring. We can talk about headdress, modesty, what's the tradition in my community, or the woman and her husband or someone else that they work in the fields, and maybe people can remember when they were younger and when they came from a different country, how they worked in the fields also. We also can use this kit, or we use this kit for working with minority caregivers, working with caregivers in general, but also in minority communities when they have difficulty in expressing their feelings. The picture of the sea, a woman said, "This is how I feel. My emotions, I'm totally like a storm at the sea." And another woman said, "This is the way I feel. I can't explain it in words. I just feel devastated because my husband has gone into a nursing home the other day." or a group of foreign caregivers from the Philippines, one of the caregivers said, "This is my village from home." So we can use these pictures to connect them to themselves, to their emotions. The Ministry of Health and MDA we talked about training the people, the workers in the communities. So we've done, first of all, training for the professionals in the Arab communities to know about dementia, to improve diagnosis, to improve care and social welfare services, and to support the families. And in order to get into these communities, we also do collaboration with the religious leaders in all of these different communities, in the Druze and the ultra-religious and the Ethiopian Jewish communities, because their religious leaders encourage the people. They talk to the family. We do seminars with families, with the community, and with the professionals. And once this is done, MDAS provides support groups in an individual support project in all of these different communities: Bedouin, Muslim, Ethiopian, Russian, Orthodox Jews. And in each one of these support groups, and also in the private or individual support, the professionals are from this community. They speak the language, they know the culture, which is very important. And these are the subjects that, all we know are talked about in support groups, and especially in support groups of minorities, the stigma, learning knowledge. The person's not crazy. The Ethiopians don't understand dementia, because either you're physically sick or you're crazy. So also, when the person goes, I'm going to talk now about the individual short-term consultation, where the social worker goes individually into the home and helps the families make individual consultations, help them understand what is dementia, and help them make a plan. So in the Arab communities, in four large cities in Arab communities in the Galilee and in East Jerusalem, which is all Arab communities, first of all, the social worker goes into the person's home. They talk with the family. And most of these communities, the daughter, who's usually not married, takes care of the person with dementia. They get the family involved, that they have to also be part of this. Another project that Daphne and I did, and Michal is going to continue in her presentation later, about in Israel, most of the people with dementia are living at home. Maybe 30 to 40% of the people living at home get foreign caregivers to live with them. That's why they can stay in home longer. They come from all different countries, mostly from the Far East, and with different cultures and behaviors and values. And also, it's very important that people stay at home, but it causes lots of problems. The emotional stress of the family, the lack of knowledge of the person. Also, the foreign caregivers say, dementia, the person is crazy. Tension between the caregiver and the family. They don't have the same language. The person, you ask someone from India, would you like to do something? And they say yes, and they don't even understand maybe what they're saying, or they go like this. Totally different problems in the beginning. And also, especially for the spouses, it's very difficult, female spouses, to have someone come into their kitchen. For the men, it's easier, and for the children, they're very happy that someone's taking care of their father or their mother. So we developed a cooking class that we combine the ingredients, fusion, like here in Spain, maybe we have the different spices, the different things. 4-day meetings. We have the first meeting with the family, talking about dementia, understanding, and Michal will talk about that. The foreign caregiver, the second and third meeting with the caregivers themselves, the foreign caregivers, understanding dementia, problem behavior, stress, understanding the family, talking about communication, activities, what kind of activities, I'm already going to finish, and the result are tips for the caregiver and tips for the family to make better communication, to tell them what is the job description, what do I expect of you, giving them boundaries and keeping them. In our support groups, most of the time, they talk about the problems, the families talk about the problems with the caregivers, so it's very important that they have these things, and also for the foreign caregivers to be able to talk to the families, to understand what their job is, and also to call the person by their preferred name. They usually call them Ima, Abba, mother, father. So this is what we've been doing, and we want to continue, and thank you.